Okay, let's kick things off with a pretty big question, one that gets to the very heart of our modern lives. Who are you really when you're online? Seriously, think about it for a second. The you on LinkedIn, all professional, buttoned up, is that the real you? Is it the same you that's trying to be funny and charming on a dating app? Or, the hero saving the universe with your gaming avatar? The answer is probably a big no. And that's because we all have these different digital selves, these cyber selves. So yeah, we all wear these different digital masks. And today, we're going to dive deep into the psychology behind why we do it. Why do we bother creating and editing and kind of performing all these different versions of ourselves? We're basically taking a little trip into how our own minds work in the digital world. Okay, so first things first, let's talk about the how. How in the world do we actually build these online identities? Well, it turns out it's not random at all. We're all basically architects, carefully designing the person we want the world to see online. The big idea here has a name. It's called impression management. And it's exactly what it sounds like. It's that strategic process of controlling how other people see you. You do it by carefully picking and choosing what you share about yourself. Now, this isn't necessarily about being fake or lying. It's more like being a movie director for your own life, only showing the best takes. And you know what? This idea has been around for a long time. We're talking way before the internet. A sociologist named Erving Goffman had this amazing theory that all of our social interactions are basically performances on a stage. And today, well, that stage is absolutely massive. It's your Instagram, your LinkedIn, even your emails. These are our new platforms. And the show, it never really stops. So what character are we trying to play on this digital stage? That's a great question. According to what's called self-discrepancy theory, we're all juggling 3 different selves at once. First, you've got your actual self, who you really are, warts and all. Then there's the ideal self. That's the person you dream of being, your best possible version. And finally, there's the ought self. That's who you think you should be based on what everyone expects of you. And our online profiles, they're usually a cocktail of all 3. So when we're trying to make that good impression, we tend to take one of 2 paths. Think of it like sports. Sometimes you play offense. That's acquisitive self-presentation. You're bold, you're positive, you're trying to score points. Or, in this case, likes and approval. But other times, you play defense. That's protective self-presentation. You're being more modest, kind of neutral, just trying to avoid getting called out or criticized. Okay, so that's the how. But now for the really juicy part, the why. What's really driving all of this? I mean, why do we go to all this trouble to manage our online image? What's the deep down motivation? Well, when you get right down to it, it all comes back to one of the most powerful human drives there is, the need to belong. It's just baked into our DNA. We are social animals, and we're hardwired to want to connect, to feel like we're part of a tribe. And the internet, it's become one of the most powerful tools we have to scratch that itch. But that leads to a really interesting debate. Who actually benefits the most from all this online socializing? And there are 2 competing theories here. The first is the social enhancement idea, also known as the rich get richer. The theory goes that people who are already socially confident, the extroverts, just use the internet to make their already big social networks even bigger. On the other hand, you have the social compensation hypothesis, or the poor get richer. This one argues that folks who are maybe a little less socially skilled or shy in real life use the internet to make up for it. It becomes a great equalizer for them. All right, so we've covered the how and the why. Now let's talk about the where, the stage itself. Because the online world has this one really unique feature that totally changes how we act. And that feature is anonymity. And let me tell you, it's a very, very double-edged sword. This is where a fascinating theory called side theory comes into play. You don't need to remember the full name, just what it says. It predicts something really cool. If you're anonymous, but everyone else in the group isn't, you tend to focus on your personal identity. You act for yourself. But if everyone in the group is anonymous, something really interesting happens. Your personal identity fades into the background, and your group identity comes roaring to the front. You start acting for the goals of the group, not just yourself. And this whole idea that anonymity can create a more level playing field, that's at the heart of something called the equalization hypothesis. The theory is pretty simple. When you're online and you take away all the normal social cues, what someone looks like, their job title, how much money they have, you basically flatten out the social hierarchy. It gives everyone a much more equal voice. And the research totally backs this up. It's really clear. Think about a typical work meeting in person. Who does most of the talking? Usually it's the boss, the high status people, right? But if you take that exact same group and put them in an online chat, the whole dynamic changes. Participation becomes way more equal. All of a sudden, the people who are usually quiet, they start to speak up. Their ideas get heard. So let's bring this all together. What's the big takeaway here? What does all this mean for us, personally? As we pour more and more of our time and energy into crafting these online selves, what's the real impact on our sense of who we actually are? Honestly, those lines between online and offline, they're getting blurrier all the time. There's a pioneering researcher in this field, Sherry Turkle, and she had a brilliant way of putting it. She called the computer our second self. She saw it as this kind of psychological playground, a safe space where we can try on different hats, experiment with parts of our identity that maybe we're a little scared to show in the real world. And who knows, in that process of playing, we might actually stumble upon a version of ourselves that feels truer. And that really brings us to the final and maybe the most important question of all. Every single profile we tweak, every photo we post, every status we update, we're curating an identity. We're telling a story. So is that story about becoming a better version of ourselves, the person we've always wanted to be? Or are we running the risk of losing touch with the real person underneath all those layers? It's definitely something to think about. Thanks so much for tuning in.